video here called Overcoming Sleep Anxiety from Tim Barks. Going to react to it. And if you don't know me, former chronic insomniac of 20 years, overcame it with what I now share with people. 2 books on insomnia, work with the MOD, NHS, so yeah, I know my stuff when it comes to sleep. And hopefully this guy does as well. So let's take a little sneaky peek.
We're all so aware of the importance of sleep that it's really easy to end up placing too much importance on it, to the point where it's the main thing we're worrying about, and thus the primary cause of our insomnia. When we have a history of sleep problems, especially prolonged periods of struggle and the physical and emotional fallout of that, we can end up becoming extremely anxious as we go to bed each night. We might start to obsess slightly about maintaining the perfect environment for sleep and making sure our evening routine runs smoothly and without any unplanned interruptions.
Yeah, I mean, the sleep obsession stems from the conditioned response. You have a few poor nights of sleep, you become desperate to never allow that to happen ever again, and this just perpetuates the cycle. And he's right when it comes to the perfect routine. Everyone gets so obsessed about protecting their sleep that they've got to do ritual upon rituals. I literally had thousands of yoga, meditation, warm baths, kiwi fruits, cherries. The list goes on. So many things I had to do to protect my sleep, and it would just make my evenings just full of terror. And yeah, none of this stuff helps. And so I'm really liking that he is not saying, you know, the usual typical sleep advice about having the perfect bedroom environment, because yeah, you know and I know that just does not work.
We might find ourselves becoming increasingly anxious if we don't instantly fall asleep when our head hits the pillow, fearing this might mean another long night lying awake. Of course, all this over-analysis creates the exact response we're trying to avoid. As our anxiety increases, so does our production of cortisol, the stress hormone, thus preventing us from easily falling asleep. It's important to remember that sleep isn't something we do, which is why the harder we try to sleep, the more awake we become. Sleep is something that happens when we stop doing both.
Yes, you know, that is true. It's the absence of effort, and people, when they have insomnia, become convinced that if they put lots of effort into trying to sleep, trying to make themselves relax, that is what is going to create sleep. It never works, but you know, you become desperate to sleep, so you try anything.
Physically and mentally. When it gets dark, we naturally produce melatonin, and that's what effectively puts us to sleep, as long as we're not producing too much cortisol. But how can we stop stressing when
It's kind of half right there. Melatonin does not make you sleep. The only thing that makes you sleep is your homeostatic sleep drive. So effectively, the longer you are awake for, the stronger that drive to sleep will be. When it comes to melatonin and your body clock, so your body clock is designed to keep you awake during the daytime by releasing things like cortisol, adrenaline, the neurotransmitter histamine, and it's designed to switch off at night time as well. So it's called a body clock because you can set it like an actual clock by anchoring your wake time. So it's not actually melatonin that creates sleep, that facilitates sleep from taking over. So the combination of enough sleep pressure, sleep drive, and melatonin combined, and the absence of the stress hormone cortisol and adrenaline, is what then helps sleep naturally take over. So yeah, you know, not 100% right, but you know, good enough.
Sleeping, and sleep is so important. Wait. Okay, let's back up a little bit. Yes, sleep is important, but whether you sleep tonight isn't a matter of life or death. It's not even close. In fact, whether or not you sleep your full 8 hours on this particular night, on this day of this week, of this month, of this year, contributes to barely a scratch on the surface of your overall long-term well-being. Yes, tonight's sleep does have an impact on how we feel tomorrow, but not to the degree that it's worth lying awake worrying about. You see, you can't really consciously just choose to sleep at will, but something you can choose to do is rest. And if you're not sleeping, then resting is the next best thing.
Yeah, you cannot make sleep happen. As I said before, it's that natural physiological process, and people with insomnia become convinced that they can control sleep, they can force sleep, they can manufacture sleep, and this is what contributes to a lot of the obsession and control around people's sleep, that false belief that sleep is something that they can create.
When you think about it, when in our daily lives do we get the chance to lie down in a comfortable place with no distractions taking up our attention, nobody demanding things of us, nothing to do or think about, and simply treat ourselves to some well-earned rest. Probably the last time we did that was whenever we were last on holiday, and with the state of the world right now, that might have been a while ago. But when you think about it, you have the opportunity to do that every night. When we're in our bed at night, we have potentially 7 or 8 hours of pure me time. We might be there to...
And yes, this is the end goal, to be just as happy to be in bed awake as you are asleep. But it's incredibly hard with people with insomnia to get there because you become so desperate to sleep. You really won't sleep. And because you're lying in bed night after night, not sleeping, the bed starts becoming, you condition the brain that the bed is a place of worry and wakefulness. So yes, whilst the end goal is to get to the point where you're just as happy to be in bed awake as you are asleep, just like a normal sleeper is, it's really hard to shift your thought patterns to do that without putting in behavioural changes first to give your sleep more predictability and regularity. And so, yeah, whilst that's the end goal, you need a few more steps in place in order to get there, because, you know, if there's a lion chomping on your leg, it's really hard to just accept the fact that there's a lion chomping on your leg until you actually get rid of it. So I like what he's saying. This is the end goal, but I think it's been oversimplified. But yeah, you know.
Sleep. But if for some reason that's not happening, then we're probably best off simply enjoying the time we have to rest our body and mind and enjoy some peaceful recuperation. Allow yourself to consciously enjoy the time to yourself and the peace of some emotional and mental space where nobody is making demands of you. We might be used to becoming increasingly frustrated if we haven't fallen asleep fast enough, but why? If we're doing nothing, we're still recharging in some way, and you don't see people tossing and turning on their sun lounger on the beach, frustrated that they're still conscious.
Nice analogy.
They're enjoying their break from the daily grind. You can do that every night if you allow yourself to. If laying in bed and still being conscious is going to stress us out, then we'll remain stressed and remain awake. If there's actually nothing wrong with laying awake at night, then maybe we can stop stressing about it. The funny thing is that when we stop stressing about whether or not we're still awake, we tend to doze off pretty quickly.
Yeah, and again, this is the end goal, but it's like saying to someone with OCD who are obsessed with washing their hands 40, 50 times before they eat a meal, oh, just stop doing it. Of course, that's the end goal, but you need to put more steps in place, which is why in CBTI, we actually rebuild your pattern of sleep first to make your sleep more predictable and regular. So you put behavioural changes in place to strengthen your sleep drive, strengthen your body clock, make that body clock more consistent and regular. And then we work on the thought patterns. And the end goal of these thought patterns is, yes, that relaxation, that calm, that happiness when you're in bed, so that you don't get that physiological fight or flight stress response, but just simply telling people to just relax and enjoy being in bed. If they could do that, they wouldn't have insomnia in the first place. So yeah, I mean, I like what he's saying. He's not creating more anxiety around sleep, but he's kind of missing the nuance about what insomnia actually is.
Resting naturally turns into sleeping when we're not stressing about still being awake. But you might be watching this video and thinking that it's not as simple as that, because you only have a limited amount of time available to get some solid, deep sleep. After all, you have to be up at a certain time and you don't function well when you're tired. Firstly, you'll be surprised how much better you function after a night's rest instead of a night's stressing.
Yeah, I mean, that's not always true. You know, this linear thing that you have to get a really good night's sleep in order to feel great the next day. That just increases the pressure on you that night in order to sleep really well the next day. But actually, you can have loads of nights where you don't sleep very well and have a fantastic day the next day and feel really good. And conversely, you can sleep really well on one night and feel anxious, stressed and worried the next day and not have a very good day. So there are lots of things that are within your control the following day that you can control to make you feel better the following day. And so when you've got all this all or nothing thinking. It's black and white. If I have a good night's sleep tonight, I'm going to feel amazing tomorrow. If I have a bad night's sleep, I'm going to feel awful tomorrow. This just perpetuates the cycle. People with insomnia just put everything on their sleep. I have to sleep, otherwise if my life's going to fall apart. And actually there are lots of things within your control the following day that you can use to make yourself feel better. Sure, if you won the lottery after a poor night of sleep, you've completely forgotten about that poor night of sleep the following day. So I get why he's saying that, but it's really not helpful to increase the pressure on people's desire to sleep by saying that.
And secondly, the simplest and often best way to solve that problem is to increase the amount of time you put in your schedule to be in bed.
Oh, he was doing really well. And please do not do that. It's one of the worst piece of advice you can give when it comes to overcoming your insomnia. Well, let's say someone who needs about 6.5 hours of sleep, so they spend 7 hours in bed. They're going to be spending half an hour in bed awake, and you can be calm, you can be happy, relaxed, knowing that you're only spending half an hour in bed awake. Now, when you've got insomnia, you start becoming more desperate to sleep, so you start increasing the amount of time you spend in bed. You use the pastry dish analogy. You've got a 7-inch pastry dish, 6.5 inches worth of pastry to spread onto that. Now you've increased that pastry dish to 12 inches, so now spending 12 hours in bed trying to get 6.5 hours of sleep. What are you going to be doing? That's 5.5 hours that you're spending in bed awake, and of course you're going to get stressed and anxious and worried and ruminate and lie there, forcing and fighting and pleading with your sleep because you've extended the amount of time you've spent in bed. So I mean, he means well, and all of this is from a great intention. I know he's trying to help you, but please don't increase the amount of time you spend in bed trying to sleep when you've got insomnia, because it really does not help. So.
When we go to bed, decided by calculating a 7 or 8 hour window prior to when we have to get up in the morning. Even before we close our eyes, we put pressure on ourselves to get to sleep straight away and to sleep soundly all the way through the night, or we'll very probably be tired tomorrow. Then we end up doing that thing of continually checking the clock to see what time it is now, and then recalculating how much sleep that would equate to if we got to sleep right now.
Yeah, the clock watching, just turn your clock round, ban it from your bedroom. The mental maths you do where you're constantly trying to work out how much sleep you've got there really isn't helpful. So I'd advise getting rid of the clocks from your bedroom. Of course, set an alarm, but yeah, the clock watching really does feed into insomnia,
which in turn stresses us out and stops us getting to sleep. A top tip here is to add some rest time to your sleep time. Add an hour or more onto the time you're expecting to spend in bed and relieve yourself of any pressure to get to sleep straight away.
Don't do that.
Then you can allow yourself to be awake and enjoying your rest without getting stressed about still being conscious.
And so the problem is, for someone who doesn't have insomnia, they can enjoy being in bed for an hour without the pressure and need to sleep, but that isn't someone with insomnia. Even if you tell yourself, I'm just going to lie here and rest and not try to sleep, in the back of your mind, there's always going to be that desire, that pressure, that need to sleep. So you just, lying down in the dark room where there's no distractions, the brain is going to start ruminating because it's the perfect environment to do that. So I would say, if you want to be in bed before, just go to bed, watch TV, put Netflix on, podcast, blue light will not kill you. It's a myth around sleep. Good sleepers watch TV all the time, for example, before bed. But yeah, go to bed when you're sleepy, or turn off the light in order to sleep when you've actually got that drive to sleep. And telling you to have more time in bed in the place that you really don't like being in when you've got insomnia is just going to perpetuate and make the problem worse. So again, he means well, but when insomnia, you really got to get that deep understanding of what it's like to have insomnia in order before you give advice to people about their sleep, in my humble opinion. But again, there's no criticism here. He's doing a good job and he means well, but
early night isn't always about getting to sleep early. It's about prioritizing your rest so that your mind is free to shut down at its own pace without any unnecessary pressure. One last thing to mention is that when we've got a long time with a history of disturbed or poor sleep patterns, then it's perfectly natural to find ourselves almost in the habit of not sleeping. Our mind's probably gotten used to becoming active when we lie in bed and is now triggering certain thought processes as soon as our head hits the pillow. Try and avoid getting frustrated with yourself for this. Everyone has bad nights at times, and it's okay for your mind to need a bit of time to get back into the habit of sleeping well and shutting down. It's only any continued frustration we feel about remaining awake for too long, or any trepidation we feel about any upcoming struggle, that actually perpetuates this habit. If we could...
And yes, he's right again. However, you cannot just tell someone with insomnia that it's... Yeah, that's the end goal, to not struggle and not fight. But if you're spending too long in bed and the bed you have conditioned the brain that the bed is this stressful worry in place, then you're naturally going to do that. So it's about the right behavioural changes put in place first to reduce the amount of time you spend in bed, increase your sleep pressure, get your body clock working for you rather than against you. And then once you put these behavioural changes in place, and then this is what stops the fight and the struggle. So I'd say when people are lying in bed and the brain does start to turn and ruminate and spin, that's when you turn the lights on, grab a book, podcast, put some Netflix on just to break the cycle of rumination. And with repetition of doing that, not allowing the bed to be this place where you problem solve, overthink, get worried, get anxious, get stressed, slowly but surely the brain starts relearning that the bed is either a place of happiness and relaxation, or it is a place of sleep. And so it's the right behaviors that you overcome this, because like I said before, it's very, very hard to shift your thought patterns if you're still doing the unhelpful behaviors when it comes to your sleep.
Frame our time in bed a little more positively and take it as an opportunity to rest, then we can cut out any fear or anger and just be. That tends to create the perfect environment psychologically to break that habit and just drift off to sleep. If the stress of whether or not you're going to sleep well tonight is what keeps you awake, then take that pressure off of yourself. Your bed is meant to be a haven where you can have peaceful time to rest, not a battleground where you go to war with yourself.
Yeah, and it will become that. With the right things in place, it will 100%, and that is the end goal. And so I think I'll end the video there. But yeah, with this guy, it's great that he isn't deliberately trying to increase anxiety around sleep, saying all the dreadful things that will happen to you if you don't sleep. So compared to a lot of the stuff that's out there when it comes to sleep, I actually think this one is all right. It's pretty good. And I do think he's got a good heart. And he means well when he's trying to help people. But it's so common that a lot of people that don't really understand insomnia try to convince themselves that they do and give advice on it, and it can send people down the wrong path. But if you do want to work with someone who really does understand insomnia, you can work with me one-to-one. As I said, insomnia for 20 years, overcame it. Sleep medicine, sleep is all I do. It's all I work with. So yeah, when it comes to really understanding this condition, I've got your back. And yeah, if you want some 5 proven techniques in order to sleep well from tonight, check out this video here. I think you're going to love it. And as always, thanks very much for watching. I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.